Welcome to the Borderlands Trail and Ultra Running Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm the host. I'm the founder of Borderlands. Today is all about races, what races we're doing for the next year. This is not a discussion about the elites. I don't have any issues with the elites, but I have been talking too much about them lately. Borderlands. Somehow we're still not learning. Borderlands. All right. So going into 2025, there's so much to think about within this sport, so much fun stuff to contemplate. What gear do we want to buy? What's going to be happening in gear? What's happening with the big races, the Western states, the UTMBs of the world? Those are all fun things to think about. But in the end, all of those things are only important in as much as we are actually out on the trail ourselves doing those things. And so when we consume the best outcome of consuming any of that other content that's out there, the best outcome is that we are inspired to go out and do it ourselves. So this is all a discussion about what me and two of my friends are going to be doing ourselves over the next 12 months. We're going to talk what our A races are. We're going to talk about other supporting races, or however we're thinking about it. We're just going to talk our races from three non-elite perspectives, people who love this sport, people who are trying to find their way through it, looking for three unique things from this sport. In as many people that run it, there are that many unique reasons for running. And today you're going to get our take on all that. So before we go any further, today's guest is Heidi Baker. She's the host of Let's Run That Again, Strong Mama Miles on Instagram. My other guest, Tommy Lewis of That's Runnable, friend of the podcast. Both have been on before, but I'm stoked to have all three of us here together. So Heidi, Tommy, welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Yeah. Okay, you heard one of the people talk real funny. That's Tommy. We are global. I mean, I'm in France, but I talk like a hybrid Utah Texan. Heidi's in Georgia right now, yes. And I want to come out of the gates with both of you and talk about your A race. You both share an A race, but Heidi, let's start with you. What is your A race? What's the big thing you're going for in 2025?
That would be Devil's Gulch 100 in Wenatchee, Washington.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
What do you think about that race? From what you know about it at this point, what are you seeing when you look at course profile, when you look at everything that about it, like based off what you know, like what are you seeing there?
I think it's going to be my biggest challenge I've ever taken on. Yeah. I live in swampland and can't get hill training very easily here. And with that elevation profile and the course, I know it's going to be a beast for me for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it.
And Tommy, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah. 100 miles. I just looked up how long a mile is as well. That's new to me.
It's at least like 20,000 kilometers. I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah.
How are you feeling about it? What's your high level read on Devil's Gulch as a course?
Not to be underestimated is it's one of those things where you get asked questions about like a 100-mile race or any ultra of certain distance is the thing that people care the most about, but every race is different, so it really is a case of just trying to figure out how to deal with the altitude, the vert. I think the heat's going to be a challenge, but it's I think about some of the races I've done in the past, and I've accumulated more vert in a much shorter race before, but I haven't had the altitude. So there's
trade-offs.
Yeah. But I'm excited for the most part.
Yeah. Heidi, when you think about looking at a year of racing, I think I'm making assumptions that you do what I do, but you're looking at your whole year of racing ahead of you. Are you building around your A race, or do you consider that your A race just because it's maybe the biggest thing on your calendar?
No, I think I'm kind of building around it. Like, I mean, I had signed up for races before I knew I was going to do Devil's Gulch, before it was even on my radar. So I had already signed up for things. Like in 2 weeks, I'm running Dark Anchor here in Savannah, and I'm hoping to get over 100 miles there.
Whoa.
It's a 34-hour race. So,
Whoa.
like
Amazing.
I have other stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm making Devil's Gulch my like A race so that in the meantime, like if something were to happen in a race, I'm not going to push myself in any of these other races where it would compromise me being able to run Devil's Gulch.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking them as like training races. Another one I've got is the Georgia Death Race, which will be a good training run for Devil's Gulch, I think. So
yeah. I mean, these are the death race. I've heard about it for a number of years. I don't know much about it. I know Canada has a race that they also call a death race. What makes that race a death race? Is it like hard terrain? Is it?
It's hard
what makes
terrain.
it so hard?
It's hard terrain. So it's in like the North Georgia mountains.
Okay.
And it's 74-ish miles, I think. Quite a bit of vert. It's just tough terrain, and you're not allowed like pacers or anything like that. And you carry like a railroad stake the whole time, and you have to throw it in the coffin like if you finish, and then if you don't, like you have to take it with you as like your reminder that you didn't finish.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But it's supposed to
Amazing.
be really tough. I mean, it has a high DNF rate, so that bodes well for me.
Okay. Yeah, whoever started that ended up putting a race in Utah at one point called the Ute 100, which is in Moab, right next, the Moab 240 and all that. And I think he sold it. But that's what. So I'd heard about that for a number of years. Tommy, what about you? Like you're looking at Devil's Gulch. When you do your race planning around it, are you building? Is everything you're choosing leading up to that so that you'll be more ready for that, or are you just kind of out and having a good time shooting in the dark like I do?
I would say it's definitely the latter.
Yeah.
I'm probably avoiding races that have the word death in them.
Yeah, I hear death and I'm like, ooh, I want to sign up for that. That sounds like a good time.
That sounds great.
So I have a couple of quite interesting races that are the distance and sort of duration of them depends on, well, the distance depends on how much I want to do, essentially. So I've got like a backyard inspired race in March, which is it's 24 hours long. So last lap is a race if you make it there. And then I have a race in Madeira Island Ultratrail.
Oh,
That's 115K. So we're looking at about 80 miles or something like that, 75 miles.
I trust you.
Yeah. And so that's like an actual sort of mountain ultra.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I have like a stage race that I could be doing fairly soon before Devil's Gulch, and then I have another 24-hour race as well. So that depends on how much I want to do. How much can you do in 24 hours? So that's not like a backyard format. That's just go as far as you can.
Yeah.
And I may be doing that with a mate, so I might be doing like a team effort on that one.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they go. But much like Heidi, none of them they're all B races. They're all to try and just do and have fun at. Most of my ultras are like that, to be honest. And then I get to the ultra and I try and do my best. But I would definitely, Devil's Gulch is the priority. Like I wouldn't wreck myself on a race beforehand. My absolute worst nightmare would be what happened to me a couple of years ago. I was signed up to UTMB, and then I did a B race, which was just a local 100K near my parents' place. It was like really low key. It was quite runnable. So I did run a lot of it, and then I got an overuse injury, and I wasn't able to do UTMB the following year. So that was killer. So I've learned that lesson the hard way. So I'm really trying to make sure I don't do that.
Yeah. I'm in this really weird place where I mean, my desire is as high as ever. I'm running on the road, and Tommy and I did an episode where talk about living in, you're in London and Paris, like love where we live, but also have this massive desire for the mountains and the deserts. So I'm training for Paris Marathon. I don't really look at it as an A race. At the same time, it's really funny to me because I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, because in my mind, this is not how I ever think about trail, but it's like, I've got some ambition around it because it's road. And I think inherent with road running, you end up thinking about your time. Mm-hmm. And I think, gosh, I don't know if I have the time to put into the race in order to do the time that I want. I'd be so far off. a road marathon doesn't feel like a sufferfest where you can go walk and, have snacks. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that, but I'm hoping that I get into the Paris Ecotrail, which is a 50 miler. And then I'm in the Wasatch 100 lottery. So I'll find out at the end of the month, but because our life is up in the air here, I don't know that I could train in Paris, but I guess it's kind of what you're doing, Heidi. Like, you're in the marsh land, which is essentially what Paris is. And then going to run Wasatch, which is, I can't remember off the top of my head, some 20,000 feet of gain up at high elevation. So yeah, actually I should shut up. This is what you're doing. How do you, to help me out here, how are you thinking about that? Like, really, how are you going to get the gain? How are you going to think about, acclimation to altitude?
Well, I hired a coach to do the thinking for me.
Okay. Smart.
Yeah. I was like, once I knew Devil's Gulch was happening, excuse me, I was like, no, I think I need some help to get there. At least take the mental load off myself of like trying to put the pieces together.
Schedule it all. Yes. And think through.
But I mean, I spend a lot of time doing incline on treadmill. I spend a lot of time on the stair stepper. And then if I can run the bridge in Savannah, that's about the one place you can go besides like a parking garage to get like hills.
So is it like running up the on-ramp and stuff?
It's like the entire bridge. There's a big bridge that goes across to the other side, like where it meets up with South Carolina. And yeah, it's not the safest. You have to do it like really early in the morning on like a Sunday to make it safe because they haven't built it for runners. But yeah, that's pretty much the options here. And then like using the other things that I'm signed up for to kind of train that for like Georgia Death Race is an opportunity to get some good climbing and, exposure to those trails. I'm planning to go up to the Philly area and run. My older brother is training for Eastern States this year. So spending some time with him on the trails there and, have like a training weekend where we get some time on climbing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's brilliant. So, I mean, do you have your training schedule enough? Probably not, but like when you're at your peak month of, preparing for it, like how much gain are you going to be trying to rustle up out of stairs and,
not
hills
yet,
and stuff?
But my coach said that like at my peak training, trying to get the gain of the race in a week. So
and that's 24,000 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of treadmill and stair stepper.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that and I think, oh, that's awful. And then I think that's what I want to feel. I want to I want to do something that's awful. I don't know. It's such a bizarre desire, but
there's nothing I can do about my situation. It's like I am where I am and there's no changing that. So I just kind of have to make the best of it. And someday maybe I'll live in the mountains and get that opportunity to do that consistently. But right now, this is the cards I've been dealt. And
maybe it's poor thinking on my part, but it's like, I can't do these races forever. So I feel like if I take off a year at the age of 42, I mean, do I have 20 more seasons? I don't want to lose one season. Felt like that was 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you think about this, Tommy? Oh, sorry. You go ahead,
No,
Heidi.
go ahead. I was just saying it's like, I don't know. For me, it's like, yeah, I mean, you know me, I've had a couple DNFs this past year but in the end, I still got to go to those trails and like experience those races and stuff. And so even though I probably wasn't up to par for what I needed to be for the elevation gain and stuff of the races that I did, like I got that. It was still, training in the bank, even though I didn't finish the race. And I still am thankful to be out there on those trails when I can. So,
yeah. So Tommy, how are you thinking about this? I think mixed in with yours, when we've talked about this offline and maybe even on a podcast, I mean, on some levels, there's a part of your, let's say, heart or however you want to word this, that is in the American 100 miler. Like that has meant something to you. First off, expand on that. Like you kind of, is it romance? Like how do you there's something about the American 100 miler that's special to you?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I think a few years ago, I'd never know how many years ago it was, but maybe let's say 5 or 6 years, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I came across, creators like Wes Plate and Billy Yang, and, those who are making beautiful documentaries and documenting their experience of these really long races. And this was far before I was any sort of ultra runner myself. I was just sort of a daily runner. And then I just became quite obsessed with it. I realized I was crying at the crescendo of these documentaries. And
you're
I was
not
like,
alone, my friend.
Why am I so captivated by this? This idea that these regular people are doing highly irregular, extraordinary things and pushing themselves to, next level limits. And it was all, North American ultra trail races. And usually it was the 100 miler that was the ultimate kind of the pinnacle, right? And then you get ridiculous, and obviously you've got the longer 200, 240, 250 mile races, which cool, maybe one day. But it's the 100 miler that really has always been the goal for me. The road to 100 has always been what I've been trying to do. Enjoying the process along the way, kind of in a weird, funny way, not bothered that I've been delaying it by a year or two because I'm in no rush to get there, because I'm enjoying the process of doing 100Ks and different races around Europe. But it has all been to get to the 100-mile race. And, a couple of years ago, I got into UTMB. It felt like a silly first 100 miler to do, but I got in, so why not? And, I obviously DNF'd, so didn't manage to even get to the start line, which was a shame. But then again, I was like, well, the road to 100 continues, and I'm enjoying the road to it. And I think it was very serendipitous that, we connected the dots, and Devil's Gulch became this race that I could potentially do. Because for me, there is some romance around the culture of ultra trail in America. I think for me, I've always not been very into running, like the running vibe in the sense that, like, road, I don't have anything against road running. I am a road runner because I'm doing it a lot. But really where I fell in love with running as a whole and the culture of running was through the idea of some of the sort of North American ultra trail culture that I was seeing out there. I was like, that's the sort of vibe that I want. It was sort of like you've described it at length, it was sort of the dirtbag kind of vibe. I really liked it. It was it was unserious, but it was deeply serious.
That's a great way to put it. It's not serious at all, and it's the most serious thing in the world. And then there's no in between.
Yeah, exactly. It's an extreme endeavor for nothing other than, I don't know, psychological adventure and investigation and finding out what you're capable of. And for whatever reason, I wasn't seeing that much here in the UK. And, European ultra has a different kind of attitude and vibe to it that I love, but it's different. It's just different. And so, I have got this weird romance attached to North American ultra trail. And so it's very cool. I'm excited to kind of be there. I remember the first time I went to the States, you guys won't understand this, but here in the UK, obviously we watch all sorts of kind of media, and culture is viewed from the UK, and it's American culture and all that sort of stuff. You see through your screens what America looks like. Then you go to America, and I remember feeling like, oh wow, I'm actually here. I'm here in this place. I think everyone kind of can relate to that to some degree, like whether it's seeing, the romance of Paris and then finally being there and seeing the Eiffel Tower, it's just, you're finally there. I think I might feel that a little bit when I'm in the pine forests of the Eastern Cascades.
And like that sort of travel thing, it's like you have this thing built up in your head, and then you get there and it's both worse and better than what was in your mind. And it's the only thing that it's definitely not is the exact thing that you had in your mind. It's, it's going to be this. I know for sure it's not going to be that, but it's going to be actually worse and better. What I love about the hanging out at Devil's Gulch last year is that, like, it is that romance. Ultra trail in America is kind of on 3 different paths. There's these old storied races like Eastern States, Western States, Wasatch, that have this heritage history. They all kind of have a brand around them. And, there's the races that are becoming the marquee elite events, looking down at our VIPA and Western States and all that. But then there are these like these, I don't know how to describe them other than just like these newer races that are trying to restore or bring to the surface the beautiful things that made this sport start to become what it is, but take you back to the late 90s, early 2000s, or even the 80s. And I think that's what Devil's Gulch is. It's not like a masterfully dialed in starting line experience where people are going in waves and there's thousands of people. It's actually all the stuff that I think lit the spark in the 80s and 90s, where it's not going to be a ton of people at the starting line. Someday I hope it's going to be a lottery. I hope that, because I like evergreen trails so much. But for now, it's that, I think it's the spark that lit it all on fire. Maybe there's 4 dozen people at the 100-mile starting line and a bunch of people at the 50 and a bunch of people at the half, but it's really just got all those things that when you watch those videos, because Billy Yang, I don't think Billy Yang could make now what he was making in the early teens, because that's gone. Mm-hmm. So, I could wax poetic on the 100-miler forever.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I love. There's something about, a wonky finish line sign and, just a couple of people saying, well done, when you've done something so epic. I think there's something about the simplicity, and it's just very humble. There's something very humble about it. And I remember just recently, a few months ago, I was doing like a backyard inspired 24-hour race. And, towards the last few hours, it's the middle of the night. You got 2 volunteers there. Mm-hmm. We're lining up at the start line every time. There's about 5 of us left. It's Baltic freezing cold. There's a wonky start and finish line. And we're so, what are we doing? But you're doing something like epic. And there's something about that. There is something about that I love.
You're forced to, and Heidi, I'd love your take on this, because what we share in common is having some DNFs under our belt at the 100-mile distance. Because of the lack of crowd, you're forced at the finish line when you do finish something, you're like, and then there's one person, you're like, this has to be something internal, because external is not like, it doesn't look good on paper. And then if you DNF, you're expecting to go back and have another experience, but nothing matters. It's all an internal thing, internal validation that, external. I don't know. I don't even necessarily know what I'm saying, but Heidi, we've both been in the same place. How do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at this point, if I was seeking external validation, I would have given up and gone back to road running half marathons or something by now. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I love it. Even when I fail, I love it. I love that people don't necessarily they want you to come back and do it again. Like if you fail, they want you to come back and do it again. It's like a family that wants you to keep coming back until you get it. And I don't know. It's definitely an internal thing at this point. I mean, I just DNF 200-mile attempts in a month's time frame last year. And
I've done that exact thing too. My first 100 miles.
I signed up for the second one I was like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to redeem myself, and then hurt myself.
I did the exact same thing. I DNF'd Zion my first attempt, and I got home and I was like, I know I could have gotten it.
Yeah, I was like, my fitness is there. Yep. Just going to sign up for another one.
And so I signed up, and then I DNF'd.
Okay, well, I'm good in good company then.
Well, remind me what your second one was.
It was it's a smaller race by Palmetto Ultras in Charleston, South Carolina area. Okay. My friend, she's the race director, and it was Swamp Box 100.
Oh, okay.
And it was, I mean, it's flat, but the trail isn't to be underestimated. It was pretty unforgiving. There were a lot of holes in the trail, and I fell into one and tripped and hurt myself kind of. And decided just to call it. I was like, what am I doing running another 100 3 weeks later? But why am I doing
3 weeks was a little bit tighter than my time frame, but
it was pretty quick. It was pretty
I respect
quick. And we had just spent the entire week at Disney World, me and my family. And so I literally got back from Disney World and packed up my stuff and drove up to Charleston to go run a race the next day. So I was a little tired. But I don't know. I really don't even know what brings me back to it. And I think that's part of the reason I started the podcast I did too, because it's like exploring that, like, why do we keep going back? Like, we get beat down, we're miserable,
yeah,
and we fail, and yet we keep coming back to it. And like, what is that brings us back to it? And I've identified some of the things, and I think every time it's a different story.
Right. Yeah, I feel like even when I say as many runners as there are in the world, that's how many different reasons there are that people run.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the next layer down, and however many races I sign up for, I also have unique reasons within that. So it's like this infinite number of whys.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people are like, "What's your why?" I'm like, "What day are we talking?" Because it changes constantly. Like it's constantly something different bringing me to the start line. So yeah.
Tommy, how are you handling crew? Or are you thinking crew? Like, is your head there yet? And I ask because you're in London and the race is in the Western United States. You got people traveling with you? You looking for people?
I'm actually not. I'm planning on doing it solo.
Nice.
So obviously adds. I mean,
I think that's very common for the international traveling ultra runner. I think that I see that a lot.
Yeah, and it adds more pressure on me, like, or at least there's some fear there that I don't have any shoulder to cry on. But it also simplifies things, and I'm a simple man. I'm very simple-minded, and adding more complication and responsibility to things, and I've never been crewed, so I don't know what it would be like to try and manage the crew team, and I would need to find someone who is a good crew. I mean, it's so important to get good crew. Like all reports say that it's such an important thing. And actually, if you have a bad crew, it can be unhelpful. And I'm very much a solo runner. I have had my support in the past. I've had my girlfriend there and supporting and seeing me, but she's not offering any sort of actual crew help or supplies and that sort of stuff. So very much just another step up in distance and difficulty for me. And just kind of seeing what I can do on the day and manage it as I go.
Okay. Are you afraid of the dark?
No.
Okay. That's where we differ. So I got to have somebody like, one of my things that I'm always, when I'm running 100, I'm like, okay, what like frailty am I going to address this time? This is like a sub Y. And one of them is, I feel like I've conquered my fear of snakes at this point, which is amazing. 15-year-old me would be shocked, but the overnight in the dark alone is really, really hard one for me. So I've tried to push myself to like not getting crew until 2 a.m., 3 a.m., stuff like that. But through the night, I guess, you were in the military, weren't you?
No, I did a bit of reserve work, but I wasn't properly in the military. I was in the fake military. Yeah. So
I can laugh because I was in the reserves too.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Heidi. That was intended to be a shot at Tommy. I didn't mean to shoot that at you.
I call it the fake military too. It's
okay.
Good. We're good.
Yeah. No, I was gonna join and then.
Okay.
Yeah, the dark has always been. It's an interesting one. I think like it's tough. The race I'm doing in Madeira, the Madeira Island Ultra Trail. That's one of those races, much like Gran Canaria as well, which did a few years ago, which starts at midnight. So you're just straight into night ops, which is both good and bad. I would personally say it's worse that way. Just because there's so much sort of fear and angst in the first few hours. It takes me a couple of hours at least, or 3 or 4 hours to get into it. And if that's all done in the dark, it's made much harder. But I will say, if you're running into the night and then through into the morning, it's obviously longer. But yeah, there's something to be said for the sunrise. I always look forward to the sunrise. The dark, I mean, the night is always the hardest for sure.
I guess one key difference, I'm blown away over here in like the Alps and stuff. There's no like big game, there's no bears. I can't believe it. I don't know how Europe got away with that. Because you run through the Wasatch and you've got
eyes looking at you.
every eye
So
known
creepy.
to
That's my worst
humanity.
moment, is the dark and
Yeah.
eyes.
So do you have a crew coming with you? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see. I'm trying to get a couple people to come out, but I don't really know yet. I don't know. It's different. Kind of what Tommy was saying. Like, I sometimes don't like I feel like added pressure a crew adds. Not I love the people who have crewed me before and stuff, but I feel like, so when I DNF no business, I felt like I had let everybody down.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Because they had all come out to support me, to pace me, and it was like, oh well, what was the point of this?
Yeah.
And then I went into Swamp Fox with no crew, and when I DNF'd, it was like, okay. Like, I mean, I'm bummed, but it's like I didn't have anyone else waiting on me or like came out for me. It's just like, I don't know. I sometimes, and I'm constantly like thinking about that in the back of my head. If I'm running out there, I'm like, oh, they expected me at this time and I'm running behind, or
yes.
And I know that they're not thinking that.
Yeah.
But I still can't help but let my mind go there. And the mental load it adds to me is sometimes not necessarily worth it. Because I'm using precious mental energy on something that really doesn't matter.
Well, there's nothing worse than knowing that you told your crew, especially if it's a spouse who is also looking after kids. There's nothing worse than saying,
that's why I don't let my husband and kids come to my races.
Well, I can't. We can't either on my side, because there's nothing worse than saying, hey, I'll be at this aid station at 3.
Yeah.
And it's 3:00 and I'm like, I'm 6 hours from being there.
Yeah.
And I got 3 kids over there.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's really hard to rebound from.
Yeah. And it ends up like, it just is one of those things that I feel like compiles. Then it's like, all the little thoughts compile into the big things that can mentally challenge you in a race. So I don't know yet. I might have crew at Devil's Gulch. I'd like maybe at least a pacer through the night, because I'm guessing that it's going to get pretty lonely out there.
Yeah.
With the field as it is right now, we're going to get spread out and and there's going to be some loneliness.
This year. Last year it was 2 50-mile loops. This year it's one large loop, which I think there's nothing worse than a 2 50-mile loop course. In my opinion, it's so hard to pass, especially at midnight,
go back on a second loop
and know that you're going to do it all again. But yeah, I mean, so they'll be out there, and for however many racers, so you're right. It could get very spread out.
Yeah. So
what about post Devil's Gulch, assuming you both, knock it out of the park, you get your finish. Are you, going to be committing money to the fall to race registrations? Like, how are you thinking about the other side of Devil's Gulch?
I'm not. Yeah, personally.
You got a lot between now and then. I think your list.
I have a lot. I was going through my calendar and I was like, some of it's still a maybe, but I have a lot and it's quite squeezed in and it's all very exciting. But I'm very seasonal anyway. Like with my training, I don't like pack out my year. I usually have like one major thing, and then I will really enjoy the sort of months after of just kind of chilling and maybe like maintaining, focusing on strength training, all that stuff. So I actually really like the off season. I think there's a lot of ultra runners out there who just love always having high volume, and that's is that you, Heidi? Yeah, that's not me. I like to put races in so that I'm maintaining nice high volume because the pressure's there, but really I really enjoy just sort of dropping the volume and keeping it easy, and having a period of time where I can focus on other things. So I don't know, maybe I'll have a little race somewhere or a fun couple of races or something, but I haven't planned anything. Yeah.
What about you, Heidi?
I'm on 2 wait lists for October for the same weekend, so we'll see if I get in. I'm either going to do the River 100 or the Javelina 100K. So I didn't know if I wanted to run 100 miles in the desert. So I chose to put myself on the wait list for the 100K there, but we'll see. I'm letting the fates decide what I do in October.
Well, you volunteered at Zion, not by Ultra Adventures.
Yeah, the milestone events. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got to see 100. I mean, you got to see that's like a luxury. I mean, I don't know.
It's a luxury
I don't know the right
100.
words. It's a $4,000 entry fee.
Yeah, it's a luxury 100.
100 miler. So how was it having, you say, because, I love the desert. So having a front row seat on a 100 miler asterisk luxury, did that not make you want to run 100 miles in the desert, or did that help solidify like, I don't really want to do this in the desert?
I kind of do at some point. It's just I don't feel like I've had enough experience out there to commit to 100 miles in the desert yet. I don't know. It's definitely different. When I was out in Zion, I struggled with the elevation.
Okay. Yeah.
Just even walking up a hill, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. So I would want to do it. I just need more exposure to it, I think. I did run a loop on that course when I did it in the night to get some night training after my volunteer shift ended at midnight. And so I went out and ran a loop and I saw mountain lions and I was like, okay, I'm going to go.
Oh, you actually saw them?
Mm-hmm.
That's too much for me.
Yeah, there were two of them because I saw four eyes looking at me.
Oh.
And I yelled, go away. And then I saw feline creatures move away. Thankfully, they respected my wishes and walked off. But I was like, oh gosh. But I want to do something out there at some point. I'm not quite ready yet. It's so hard because I love it. It's so different. I love the desert. I loved being in Zion. I loved hiking out there. I felt like I was on a different planet. Like it was just so beautiful. But then I love like the forests and the trees here on the East Coast. Like, I don't know. There's something about the Appalachian and like, I just love it out here too. So it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, for me, it's hard because I would love to be, if I was in America, I mean, hard. I'm very happy with where I am. I do miss my normal races. I love getting out to Moab in the winter. Mad Moose puts on great winter races. And then I don't like not being at Zion and Bryce, which I'm normally at. And they've changed hands this year. Someone bought them out. The Salem is out, the main guy, and new CEO. And they're really investing in making it what made it popular at one point early on. And Michael Versteeg, the Satisfy guy and Saddles guy, he's the course director for vacation races for those races. And he's like, from everything I hear, having a huge influence. So if you ever do want to do a desert race, I mean, those vacation races are incredible. Of course, Aravaipa has the reputation, but.
Right. I know. And I mean, you say like, I don't want to run 100 miles in the desert. I don't want to necessarily run 100 miles in the desert at Javelina. Like somewhere like Zion might be a little bit different. It's a little they're a little bit different. But my co-host on the pod is running Cocodona this year, so I'm hoping to get out there and crew her and get that. Get time in the desert without having to be the main the main character. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, well, I think this year, I mean, it's going to be a fun year. I think for the whole sport in general, like, every year is just an exponential growth year. And so it'll be just fun to see what happens. I mean, so before we wrap up, Tommy, any high level stuff for you? Like what else is 2025 have for you? I mean, you recently quit your job to go all in on the running stuff. I mean, you got tons of events. Like what's 2025? You got any ambition there? Do you have any like stated external goals, or like what's up?
Well, I was going to mention before, like 2025 looks very different for me compared to other years that I've been training for ultras. I have the ability now to go to places where there are more mountains. I have more freedom now. So I'm kind of just really excited to just have that freedom and to escape to the mountains when I want to and get some serious volume in and get some real training in and just manage my day a bit better.
Yeah.
I think that, doing the number of races I'm doing in the year, but also doing a 100 miler and then having like a full-time job and also doing stuff on the side, just proves to be like really difficult. So
yeah,
I'm really grateful that I've been able to kind of free up my time to actually do this stuff and give it a good crack. So I'm just excited to, train properly, get more time on the trails in the mountains and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, personal goals for me, like outside of that, I want to grow That's Runnable to become, much bigger and much more than just me and my personality. The aim really is to just have like a place that people can come to be educated, feel enabled, so that they can understand that they're more capable than they really realize that, they first realize that they are. And so that's going to come in the form of everything I'm currently doing, but also some coaching and stuff.
Nice.
Hopefully in the next few weeks, really, there'll be some form of coaching that will be built out. So,
oh, great.
More of that to come, I guess, from me directly. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the year brings.
Nice. What about you, Heidi?
I would like to see the podcast grow this year for sure. Trying to get better about like getting the social media up and going for it. And yeah, it was, the podcast itself was just kind of a spur of the moment decision in the middle of last year. And inspiration struck and I acted on it. So I really want to see it grow. I think it's pretty exciting what we've done so far, me and my co-host. And I'm excited to see that grow. I haven't been as much focused on like the coaching side of things, but I've gotten a few new clients and working on that, growing there as well.
Great.
But yeah, just, and then, I'm a mom to 3 kids that I homeschool, so I've got that on my plate as well. So just trying to balance it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and for me, I'm hoping to do I got a little ambition kind of through a lot of different things within, as it relates to Borderlands. I want to start, I want to build out this idea that's in my head of, if you follow sports at all in America, there's like College Game Day and Inside the NBA, like these like iconic pre-game show, like entertainment. And I want to bring that to running. So I'm going to try and do that at Western States and potentially at UTMB this year. But as it pertains to running itself, I've got it in my mind, after seeing Matt Johnson run across Texas, I really want to run across Texas. Like, as I'm here in Europe, I've been away. I lived in Utah for 22 years. When I find myself longing to be back in America, it's longing to be back in Texas, where I was born and raised for 19 years. I don't think that's where we're going to end up moving, but the thought of just running from El Paso down to Galveston, I won't be able to compete with Matt's time. But I don't care. I want to run, I don't want to do a trans-con unless it's a really small con, like like Australia, relatively speaking. But the animals there are too much for me. So want to run across Texas. I don't know if I like start to plan it this year or if that ambition dies down. But that's that's where my head's at. We'll see.
That's cool, man.
Cool.
I know. Yeah, come run across Texas with me. Everyone's invited.
Yes, sweet.
It's huge. Okay, well, hey guys, thanks for joining me. I'll be absolutely keeping my eye on Devil's Gulch. I want to see it grow, and so I'm always kind of looking to see how many people are registered and all that and signing up. But if life has moved us back to America, and I'm in America, I really want to come and hang out with you all while you're there, and maybe even sign up for the half marathon.
Slightly more reasonable.
Yes. All right. Well, let's do this again sometime, maybe after the race, and get a race report.
Yeah,
absolutely.
sounds good.
All right. See you.
Nice one.